We're back. The hashtag is I think we all thought we were all going to do it. Everybody's job becomes no one's job except mine. All right, so we're back.
Bromance.
Yes. Oh, yeah, bromance. Huh? Also, you all can carry on as you were. So let's talk about the BBI, right? Meru, it was meh.
What?
Meh. Like,
no, Meru
what happened?
Meru had
you were there.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
From Friday. Meru had its fair share of interesting things.
Right.
The politics, the content, and the 2022 discussion.
And the walkouts.
Yeah, some things that we saw, some things that we didn't see, some discussions behind the scenes, and some that came to the fore. But what I found interesting was that for the first time in all these rallies that we've covered, that was the 7th one. The Meru one was the 7th. But I found it interesting that almost the entire BBI steering committee was in Meru. The only other time that I saw Yusuf Haji was in Garissa. And there was a reason, because he's the senator of Garissa. That they all were in Meru, said something. And listening to
all of them?
Almost all of them. I saw
Adam
Professor
Zolo,
Adam
everybody,
Zolo,
right?
I saw Paul Mwangi, I saw some of the members of, let's say a good number of the members were there. And it should tell you something, that probably the Mount Kenya meeting was the defining moment, so to say. And some of the recommendations that came out of that meeting, remember we had talked about them the previous show, I found them very interesting. For the first time, they went to the extent of even proposing definitively what will be the roles of some of the offices that they are proposing to be created. When you hear that the president will be the head of state and commander-in-chief of the defense forces, the prime minister will be the head of government and coordinator and supervisor of day-to-day running of government. When you hear that the deputy president will be the leader of government business in the Senate, when you hear that 2 deputy prime ministers will be the deputy leader of government business in the Senate and the National Assembly, and even proposing that the positions of the Speaker in the Senate and position of the Speaker in the Senate, in the National Assembly, be included in the power sharing formula, tells you something. And probably this is, I would dare say, this is probably the final result that you will see as a result of this BBI process. And
that they even handed over the report to Senator Haji himself, who's the chair of the steering committee. I mean, there was all of that, you know, Linus Francis talking about what was seen, what was not seen. One of the things that has stood out for me is the fact that we haven't seen President Uhuru Kenyatta attending any of them. In fact, to the extent that this looks like it is a Raila Odinga or ODM-led process, which is what, you know, the opponents of it like to push it as. Is it plausible deniability that at some point it allows him to say, you know, I mean, if it all goes sideways?
It is causing observers to start asking, what is that he
Especially
is doing?
Mount Kenya, because that was...
Yes, that is his backyard, and there was a lot of speculation that he'll make an appearance in the Mount Kenya edition of the BBI rallies, but he didn't. That is why it's so interesting, because some questions will then be raised. Where does the president really stand? I know he's made his position very clear a number of times from Bomas, and after that he supports BBI. But there's something about the rallies that he needs to speak to, whether he is actually supporting that process, because what opponents of BBI have been doing, and very, very successfully, is to separate the process that we are witnessing in form of rallies from the process they saw in Bomas of Kenya. And they are saying it's not the same thing. What you're seeing in the rallies is something else. They came, you know, full blast this weekend and said this is about succession. There's something else that has been at play in these BBI rallies, and that is a show of muscle between 2 presumed political sides. Because, let's face it, let's cut the whole chase short, this is about 2022 as well.
I think it is pretentious, in my view, for people to say they are wondering where the president stands on this issue, if you just look at the people who attend this thing. I mean, it is anybody can see that the people who attend these meetings are people who would be under the direct authority of the president. That if you see government officials in all of these things, you see the regional commissioners and whatever facilitating everything that is going on. You see cabinet secretaries at the heart of all of these things. You see governors who everybody knows would in other circumstances not see eye to eye with Raila Odinga.
Cabinet secretaries.
If you see, and even governors, I mean, if you see all these guys trooping to Capitol Hill to brief Raila Odinga on how the Meru preparations are going on, how whatever else is going to be happening there, it gives you an idea that either the president is fully behind this or Raila Odinga has taken over the government of Uhuru Kenyatta. I doubt the latter. So I think that it is only fair to assume that as we speak now, there could be strategic reasons why the president chooses to keep away. But I think that the energy with which the DP's side of things has been using to deal with these rallies and everything should tell you that there's something they know that we don't know. When you see people fighting hard and raising questions that no one is asking, it usually says that there's something they know which you do not know. These people know where the president stands, but they cannot take on the president directly. So they are taking on the person that they think represents the president the most. I mean, it is said many times that even when people are fighting in a house, maybe it is a husband and wife, and you will see maybe the mother hitting the child or kicking the cat or breaking something to send a message like, you know what, I don't like what you're doing. And that is usually what happens even in these circumstances where all these salvos are actually being directed at Uhuru Kenyatta. That look, this guy you brought here, because why are they complaining about Raila Odinga? And yet Raila Odinga was brought into this because of a handshake that he did with their own party leader. So it tells you that there is a lot that is going on here that we are not seeing on those screens. But the bottom line is that it is difficult to believe that Uhuru Kenyatta does not know what is going on, is not behind it. Otherwise,
he does, Joe, but all we are saying is he's handling this exactly the same way he handled the Kibera by-election. Playing safe, stay away.
But did you hear what he said later?
But he only said that later.
How all these ladies were calling that is what I meant by BBI. So I guess it's a sense, in a sense, he does not want to confront his DP right now. It's probably a bit too early in the day to do that because once it starts, you can't stop. So he's just avoiding.
But then we hear sentiments like what we heard from former vice chair of the Jubilee Party. We have that sound clip. David Murathe. A lot of people when they see him, and it was curious that I saw him there. I haven't. Am I wrong? You've covered a lot of these rallies. I haven't seen him at the previous rallies. But at this one, he was there and he actually said this about 2022. Can we, let's listen to that. Yeah, David Murathe.
The Constitution has no limit. So unless and until the President declares that he is no longer interested in being the leader of the Jubilee Party, we want them to tell us whether they are going to. In any case, kwani Uhuru anaenda wapi? Uhuru is going nowhere. Uhuru is going to be here. Even if he stops being president, kwani atahama Kenya? Uhuru will still be in this country. And in the new political dispensation and new political formations, the leader of the party with the majority in the House forms the government. And they better start getting used to the idea, because that is what this new dispensation is all about.
And
I know what you
know what I was referring. Yes, Meru, right.
That bite was a little more explanatory than the one that you're looking for.
But wasn't this at Rubia's funeral? Yes. Isn't it? Because this is not in Meru.
This is not in Meru. The Meru one, he spoke a bit in Kikuyu, but there's something that he said that was very pointed, that the president will not leave the presidency to a thief, which is very, very serious. It's a very serious allegation.
He did not say that we are going to tell the president.
Yes.
He was, whoever that thief is, but he was saying that there is a certain decision the president has made, and I know it, that he's not handing over to a certain...
My question then would be, when he makes such serious statements, I rarely see him being negated, which could probably tell you something. But more fundamentally, I heard Kiraitu Murungi speak. And he gave that analogy that Raila Odinga, the former prime minister, keeps saying, that we were heading to Canaan. When we go to River Jordan, we found crocodiles, mamba, na safari ikamalizikia hapo. Listen to what Kiraitu was saying about how mamba walienda wapi.
Yale mamba ambayo alikuwa kwa maji yako hapa kwa hii kiwanja siku ya leo. Na Uhuru ameondoa hiyo mamba. Sasa baba, shika watu wote wa Kenya, na hata sisi wa Mount Kenya utusahau, sisi sote tufike Canaan.
Wale ambao wanakuja hapa wanasema wanaunga BBI mkono, alafu wanawanyima nyinyi wenyewe heshima, wakizungumza wanang'oka. Hiyo si heshima kwa Wameru.
Tukibadilisha hii katiba, ikikuja katiba mpya, haizuii Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta kuchukua kiti. Mnampa kiti gani? Kiti gani? Kiti gani?
Uhuru hata wachia mwizi hii kiti. Mumenielewa? Ama awachie mwizi? Awachie mwizi? Hata wachia mwizi.
Well, very serious issues being raised there. You know, and it tells you that this BBI process is not just about, making changes to the constitution, one man, one vote, proportional representation, equitable sharing of national resources. There's a bigger picture to it, and it has something to do with 2022. So we would be deluding ourselves as a country if we were to say this is basically about, equitable sharing of national resources and everything else. It has everything to do with politics. The sooner we agree this as a nation, probably the better, Linus.
Yes, and watching that crowd, this is the missing link in this entire BBI conversation. It's still very political leadership driven. You don't see the passion on the ground. You don't see, you can see that crowd in Meru, and Atoli is asking a question, and a section would answer that. This is what is different about this current drive for constitutional reforms compared to that we saw in 2010 and even the one that was there in 2005.
Or even at Bomas in November last year.
Or even at Bomas. Meaning there is a lot that needs to be done for some of these things to resonate, especially among the ordinary wananchi. The one approach that BBI has taken that would probably lead to that is that of each region saying what they're looking for. That way, you get the passion, and we saw it in Narok when the community leaders were speaking, and it resonates with the crowd there. Meru, you can tell people are still trying to figure out what is this about.
And then we have Nakuru now that was meant to be this weekend, now postponed. I mean,
to 21st.
Yes. What's that about? And then also Eldoret has been cancelled.
The Eldoret one has been cancelled and merged with the Nakuru one because I would think some of the sentiments that have been expressed, and especially against the deputy president, you would not easily make those statements in Eldoret.
No, that's right.
You wouldn't.
Perhaps not even in Nakuru as well, because I heard, the leaders from the Rift Valley, Susan Kihika was there.
No, Nakuru is different. Nakuru is a mixed bag. I mean, it's much more cosmopolitan, you would say. There are many. It can be an even ground for both sides. I mean,
but it also has the history of, the first handshake, if you like.
The stakes would not be as high for the DP if, as it would be if you are talking about his own backyard, where he has been MP for many years.
The events in Meru have informed conversations about BBI rallies going forward, because in Meru there was a walkout led by Kipchumba Murkomen and I think Moses Kuria. what that brought about is typical Kenyan politics. When you hold a meeting like that, it is a competition of mobilization. You don't just go into an event and wish for a crowd to turn up. That crowd is brought in there. And what happened is the Murkomen team, the Murkomen side, played their bit. And you know, they have Linturi on the ground, yep. Who must have done a very good job in terms of mobilizing people into the Meru Stadium. Now, if you, as BBI, the mainstream team, walk into Nakuru like that, with Kihika, Susan, and
Jane Kihara, the entire team, Kimani Ngunjiri,
and the DP himself, you know, it's something you need to prepare for. Otherwise, you can potentially get embarrassed. Suppose the Afra Stadium, 50-60% of it is packed with supporters of the DP.
But I have a different
view.
There's
no tag. You see, there's no tag. You can't say this is so and so's supporter. They will say they were to Nakuru. And you know, you could easily tell, even from how people were seated and where people were placed. As soon as Moses and Kipchumba arrived in the stadium, they arrived after the other leaders had arrived. You could see some sort of excitement that, you know, accompanied that. And when Moses stepped out and followed by the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet, you could tell that there was a signal. Look at the reasons that Moses and Kipchumba gave, that was going to a school function, had been given a lift. Probably that's the political argument, so to say. But the reality on the ground is vitu ni kupangwa.
But they did score. They did score a point, right?
I would chance to say that given the fact that this thing has gone everywhere around the country, there might also be a strategy of trying to frame these people as the ones who do not want BBI. That look, the whole country, we've gone to all of these places, and look at the kind of reception we had. So even for them, avoiding Eldoret, I'm not too sure that that's necessarily a very good thing for the DP's people, because at the end of the day, there is talk now that when the BBI comes to Nairobi, then probably both Uhuru and Raila would be there for that, because it would be the final one. And perhaps the DP himself. So what would that say? Like, you know, this is the same BBI rallies that have been going around the country. Then they conclude now in Nairobi. Nairobi, where you would say that Raila, for instance, has a huge support base. And you could say the same of Uhuru Kenyatta, which means that even in terms of mobilization, Nairobi is one place where they would probably have
the muscle,
the muscle, and that would be the final BBI rally, where they would say this is what this thing has been about all this while it's been going around the country. So I really think that at a strategic level, even the DP's people need to be careful about the image that is then given about them. There might be a point at which they might appear isolated in this whole conversation when you say, you know, this is the one place where these people rejected the BBI. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I think it might be a conversation that people might look back and say, hey, what happened here? This might be the point at which the isolation actually took root.
Talking about that conversation, look, the Meru region and Nakuru region are predominantly Jubilee areas. This year, we were told that the Jubilee Party will hold its party primaries. So far, there doesn't seem to be any talk around that discussion of party primaries.
There won't be.
And probably there won't be. The party secretary general is indisposed. We are told he will be back this weekend. But did you listen to what the vice chairman, former or current, I don't know how to call him, was saying? That his resignation was never accepted. If you go to the register of political parties, if you ask for a list of party officials, you'll still find his name. So we are told.
David Murade, yes.
So what does that mean? And if the party
is no longer a former,
and if the party primaries are not conducted this year, and you heard what you were saying during the funeral of the preparations for the funeral of Zerubia, that unless you're saying you want to oppose the president in terms of party leadership position, there's something. But fundamentally, I remember one bite that Kipchumba Murkomen made, and it would be very nice to listen to it as we wind up. During the funeral of Rigathi Gachagua's mother in Madeira, There's something interesting he said about the Jubilee Party and their investment in that party.
We are not about to separate ourselves with Jubilee and Uhuru Kenyatta. That is our investment. We have put our own political investment for more than 10 years on Uhuru Kenyatta. And nobody can give us a lecture and nobody can tell us muachane na Uhuru Kenyatta. Hata Uhuru Kenyatta mwenyewe hawezi kututoroka, akipiga kona sisi tunapiga kona na yeye.
Let Linus, wacha Linus apige hiyo kona.
Akipiga kona,
tunapiga naye. And this is the one thing that is also complicating the BBI politics, because there is an intra-Jubilee succession issue that is going on. Because what Murkomen is basically saying is, we've been together all along. We're almost doing 10 years. So you had better work with us. It's a very straight message to the president side of the Jubilee Party that, come on, you remember 10 and 10? Let's do it.
Indeed, and wow, it's a wrap. And as Jamila would say, it's time to take it home.